Well, this commentary certainly is not going to get people mad. Now, I will say the last time we talked about this player, the video that we made ended up becoming the second highest viewed video on the YouTube channel's history of all time, and it garnered 200,000 views, which is wild to me. So, yeah, I think a lot of people want to hear conversations about this player. Maybe not in the same way as the last video when we said, hey, maybe he might leave, but today we're talking once again about Auston Matthews, Toronto Maple Leafs star, arguably, probably the best Leaf of all time, best Leafs goal scorer of all time, and somebody that has been making the highlights over the past few hours here on Twitter because of a Twitter thread posted by Jeff Fayette on August the 6th. Now, this is the entire thing that I wanted to go over here when it comes to Auston Matthews. What Jeff posted was an era-adjusted goals per games played list of players in their first 6 NHL seasons since the original 6 era. This is in all situations, and what it does is it takes a look at these guys from the start of their careers to the first 6 seasons, and it tallies up, hey, if you adjust the eras, this is how many goals per game these guys each scored. Starting out with number 9, you have Eric Lindros, who had a .6 goals per game adjusted for the era. Mike Bossy had a .61 goals per game. Teemu Selanne had a .64, tied with Steven Stamkos, also with a .64. Mario Lemieux had a .65, Auston Matthews had a .66, and the top 3 goes as follows. Brett Hall with a .68, Ovechkin with a .68, and Wayne Gretzky with a .69. Goals per game in their first 6 seasons adjusted for the era. Now, this is pretty close. If you do .69 goals per game multiplied out by 82, you end up with about 56.58 goals on a season. If you do .68 goals per game instead, you end up with 55.7. So realistically, what we're looking at here is a difference of about 1 or 2 goals each spread out between first and about 7th overall on this list. This is, of course, adjusting for the era, because some eras it was a lot easier to score in, other eras it's a lot more difficult. Ovechkin played in an era where you could say it's a lot more difficult to score goals because the goaltending is better, the systems are better, etc., etc., but still, at the end of the day, adjusted goals also takes a look at the amount of goals scored in an era in general, and it's no secret that back in the 80s you had a lot more goals per game, you saw a lot more 7-5, 7-6 games than you do today, so hockey was a pretty different sport. The fact is, Wayne Gretzky was so dominant in all situations that he still is the first overall player when it comes to goals per game in their first 6 seasons. Now, what Jeff also did was he posted the same graph, but he did not do this for all situations. He posted another list for era-adjusted goals per games played in the player's first 6 seasons since the original 6 era, only at even strength. This is where things get very interesting. Because Mike Bossy is at number 9, he's got a .39 goals per game. Yeah, those power play goals really going out there and taking a toll on Bossy's production, by the way, RIP. Connor McDavid has a .39 as well, Steven Stamkos goes down to a .41, Eric Lindros has a .42, Teemu Selanne has a .44, Brett Hall has a .44 as well, and then the top 3 goes as follows. Alex Ovechkin, in even strength play in his first 6 seasons adjusted for the era, had a .45 goals per game. Wayne Gretzky had a .48. Auston Matthews, on the other hand, was number 1 in this category with a .5 goals per game in his first 6 seasons, adjusted for the era. If you grabbed Auston Matthews in his first 6 seasons, and you combined all of these Auston Matthewses into one player, and you gave him a full season with era adjusted based on 0, and you said, hey, you played 82 games, he would get 41 even-strength goals, which is higher than every other player on this list, and in NHL history since the original 6 era. Now, this is a pretty interesting graph. And it's one that I actually had a little bit of difficulty absorbing fully because I realized at the beginning, wait a minute, Auston Matthews was the 4th best goal scorer in his first 6 seasons since the original 6 era in all situations, but at even strength play he is first. I knew Auston Matthews was a good 5v5 player. In fact, if you go over to Matthews and his overall goal log, he's played 6 years in the NHL. He has a total of 259 goals, and 196 of those goals came at even strength. Let's do the math here. 75% of Auston Matthews' total goals in his first 6 seasons came at even strength. Now, my initial response upon seeing this list was, wait a minute, where is Gretzky? Wasn't the thing with Wayne Gretzky the fact that when the Oilers would get a power play in the 80s, they would actually take a penalty themselves, making it 4-on-4 because that would give Wayne more open space? I thought for sure that Wayne Gretzky's power play stats were not really all too great because they intentionally would take more penalties to give him more room on 4v4 and not have the penalty expire when they would score a goal on that 4v4, which technically would count as even strength, right? Is that the case? Well, here's Wayne Gretzky and his first 6 seasons in the National Hockey League from age 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Wayne Gretzky, in his first 6 seasons in the NHL, scored 429 goals, and of those 429, 297 came at even strength, which is actually a lower percentage of goals scored by Gretzky at even strength at .69. Or 69%. Pretty nice number. There's a lot of 69s in here, actually, thrown around with Wayne Gretzky. Kind of funny how that works. But still, this has been the status quo, that even though Wayne Gretzky had a whole bunch more goals in terms of the raw hard numbers, the percentages say that, hey, he actually had a few more goals on the power play comparative to Auston Matthews in other situations too. Plus, Wayne Gretzky had a few shorthanded goals thrown in there throughout the first 6 seasons of his career as well, that in which Auston Matthews has not scored a single goal at shorthanded strength yet, because of course he hasn't. Why would they play him there? And so, when it comes to even strength play, Auston Matthews is, I mean, is it fair to say he's the best goal scorer of all time? Higher than Gretzky? Higher than Ovechkin? I mean, his 51 goals in the span of his own personal 50 straight games played was pretty gosh darn good, if I do say so myself, even if he had a really slow start to that year. But Auston Matthews is just an absolute goal-scoring machine. Here is the follow-up tweet in the Jeff Fayette Twitter thread. He also has era-adjusted points per games played in their first 6 seasons for all situations, and this is where Gretzky and Lemieux go out there and shine. Auston Matthews isn't even on the points per games played list. It's kind of funny that McDavid is, and he's above Crosby, Lindros, Ovi, Malkin. McDavid is just so gosh darn good, man. So I really like the fact that he is on here. Fayette also posted 2 more tweets that kind of encapsulate the entire conversation here, adding 2 things to this thread because there's been a lot of yelling since I posted it. Era-adjusted stats aren't something that I made up or something new. You can find out more about them at Hockey Reference. And number 2, Auston Matthews being on the goal list has made people particularly upset, with many claiming that I use adjusted numbers just to squeak him in. Matthews is near the top of both lists without adjustment as well. Adjustment smoothens the era, but it doesn't significantly reshape the list. And so, Fayette is saying that even if you took a look at the regular goals per games list for players' first 6 seasons without era adjusting it, Matthews would still be near the top, if not right there as well. So it's not really all too useful to go out there and say, oh no, you're only using era adjusted to make Matthews look good because you're a Toronto writer. In fact, there was a few hate comments that Fayette was getting here as well. Auston Matthews plays in an era with virtually 0 contact. Imagine him taking the abuse that Mike Bossy used to play through to score. My goodness, imagine him playing on the ice with Scott Stevens, Ulfie, or Kasperitis on the ice. Gotta be careful with era adjusted stats. Jeff then quote-tweeted this and said, I wonder what made this guy change his mind. And then he tweets an image of the same person saying 4 years ago that Ovechkin, if you put him back in the 80s, you'd see 90 goals. Elite athletes are elite athletes, period. So there's a contradiction there for Twitter user Habs1973. But at the end of the day, Auston Matthews is very good at scoring goals, and I actually was kind of taken aback that his even strength play was that much better than Wayne Gretzky's, considering Wayne Gretzky had the benefit of playing 4v4 hockey all the time because the Oilers would take more penalties to make sure they didn't get a power play and eventually lose the advantage once they would score a goal because that would happen pretty quickly. It's kind of funny how everything works out, but even with the era adjustment turned off, Matthews is still near the top. Talk in the comments your thoughts about this video, this idea over here, the comparison between Wayne Gretzky, Auston Matthews, Alex Ovechkin, Lindros, Bossy, McDavid, everybody who has been great at scoring points and goals throughout the National Hockey League and its history since the original 6 era. I hope you enjoyed this video. Juraj, and bye.